By the way, if you do happen to get injured Blade Masters and injured Tolvirs in your hand as Shaman, try not to play them. It really gets messy with your Shadow Walk later on. PSA.
Pro tip!
Yeah.
Something just pops up from all different angles. Pro tip!
I nearly did it. I was playing against Warrior, and I was on like the Hero Power Coin Shadow Walk line, and I got 2 injured Tolvirs in my hand. And then was like, oh, if I play both... Like, I almost played one. I was like, whoa, if I play both of these, the second Shadow Walk won't go off, because the first one will just kill itself.
Not a Northshire. Can you just sack one of them? Can you play it as bait? Hopefully absorb 4 points of damage. Hope it's meaningful.
From Viper's perspective, maybe. From Orange's perspective, there's a bright orange glowing card called Bloodlust in his hand. Right now, he's repping, what, 28?
Wild Pyro throw a silence at something? Like, he can't read Bloodlust. It's not in the deck.
No, he's not going to play around it, and he's going to lose. This is the correct play. Do nothing.
I agree. And Orange, he's got the goods.
You want to talk about weird scenarios in Hearthstone? It's one of the few games where do nothing and die because of it was actually the correct play all along.
It's a tough set of games on both sides, and Orange able to just narrowly get over it. And you saw how important him fighting for board was. Just playing the 3-3 and just absorbing a shot. You know, that Light Warden going down, that could have represented a ton of damage at some point throughout this. Viper's got to think about how he restricts the board. He's got to think about his average outcomes. Like if he picks up card draw, how much different is it if Orange's been able to fight for board versus having a restricted board? Well, the card draw could end the game in that scenario. There's little meticulous things, and that's what makes Priest a difficult deck. But it's very good at doing those meticulous things. It's what makes it a powerful deck. But Quest Shaman, once it gets over that hump, it is tough to beat. If you don't eliminate it early, you are in for a really tough game.
You absolutely are, yeah. And I think we can talk about the early game decisions, like the Light Warden trade we debated, and sure, that's a decision point. But I think the 2 major decision points are the one that you brought up and the one that I brought up, where either you force the mind control tech earlier or you continue to play around the mind control tech. Of course, Viper was in a position where 80% of the time, even if his opponent has mind control tech in hand, which is a percentage modifier in itself, because sometimes it's just not there and the game is over, 80% of the time it is there, you're still in a fine position to be able to continue to trade through. But I think for me, those 2 turns were the ones to look at.
So Orange is ready for the interview with us. Orange, can you hear us?
I can. How's it going?
Well, it's going pretty good. I want to know how you're doing right now, though, because that looked like a stressful set of games. On top of it being super cool, talk to me about the series. How are you feeling? The cool spots in the game?
Man, I felt so good after... I felt like I really took a huge risk by choosing Druid game 1, and I was so happy when I hit his Warrior. And I also felt like I was in a good spot and got a game just right, except like 2 missteps that I did in the game, but I'm not sure if it would change the outcome. So when I lost that one, and I knew that, like, well, there's a Priest Mirror, which is, well, yes, uninteractive as shown, and then I have to win unfavored versus the best deck in the game. I did not feel great, and, well, not to talk about when I have to, like, coin Bog Slosher on turn 2 into a Priest that goes 1-drop Tolliver. I cannot really believe that I got out of that one as the winner, but hey, I'm very happy I did. Shout out to Mind Control Tech, I guess.
So I've got to ask you, obviously we saw Warrior beat Druid again, and like, we know this shouldn't happen, but we do keep seeing it. The Warrior keeps winning. Like, is there anything you can put this down to as to why we keep seeing Warrior win that matchup on stream?
Well, I mean, it has been a lot of really, really good draws that has beaten Druid from the Warrior side, which is kind of ironic because in testing, Druid has won a lot. But that game, honestly, not gonna lie, everything went right for me. I mean, I think Viper had a good draw too, but I felt like I had pretty much the ideal draw and I still lost. So that was kind of surprising. I think he played it really well. Of course, there's a lot of experience with endgame Warrior versus Druid since he plays his Druid. So he probably has more experience with that than me. And I felt like maybe I got outplayed, and maybe we should go back and reevaluate if that matchup isn't like it's as good for Druid as it seems, because the tempo plan from Warrior in that game it's pretty strong.
Telling you, just simply Warrior favor. No, I'm kidding. So you're mentioning Viper's Druid. How did you rate that deck in your testing? Did it perform well against you in practice?
It performed pretty well, actually. It it was really good against my druid. Couldn't win against priest, but hey, what they can. And then surprisingly, we thought that shaman would be quite good against it, but shaman literally can't beat turn 1 Spirit of the Raptor. It's so good. It solos the entire deck, that Spirit of the Raptor.
Yeah. There's exactly 2 scenarios that I have defeated that druid with shaman, and all of them involve getting about 16 sandstorm elementals packed into a shutterwalk and figuring out a way to use that as the final push. And it's basically impossible, is what I have found.
I was able to burn out Casper a few times as shaman in that matchup, but man, getting early board control with small minions against that druid wasn't easy at all. So maybe it's a bit better than we expected, but I still think that regular druid is better.
And so now we're 2 weeks after this balance patch. We're starting to see where things settle up. I'm kind of looking at the metagame from a top-down perspective. A lot of shaman, a lot of priest, and a lot of druid have come in, and then warrior has kind of seeded itself as like that linchpin deck that goes into basically every single lineup. You didn't bring warrior this week, though. Talk to me about landing on that decision and bringing the Holy Wrath Paladin, if you can talk about your strategy in depth.
I really don't think that warrior is in a very good spot right now. I think it's slightly unfavored against the Bomb Sunday Priest, even though some people claim that it's favored for Warrior. It's, well, I think it's still unfavored versus Druid, and I think it's really bad against Shaman. And if those are going to be the most popular decks, then I don't want to be the one with Warrior in my lineup. So basically that. It's pretty good against most people's fourth deck, but I don't know. I'm not very impressed by Warrior currently.
All right. Well, also, this is your time and your platform. If there's anything else you'd like to say, I think now's a great time to do it.
No, not anything I can come up with from the top of my head. I'm just really happy that I was able to claw back with a 2-0 this week. And shout out to our playtesting group of Hunter Ace, Bor, Fino, Sayan, and Muzzy, and me for being like great practice partners. I would not have went 2-0 this week if it wasn't for them helping me practice and discuss a lot of plays with me. So shout out to them. They're MVPs.
Wholesome as always,
yep.
Orange.
Humble, wholesome. Orange, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
You want me to fire shots too?
Oh, please. Like, if you could. That would be amazing.
If you want to fire a shot, that's great, because you never do that.
Okay, I gotta start with that I love the person, but I think that Colento needs to step up his play. I have watched all of his series, and I feel like he hasn't been playing up to the level as the other players. I know that he has come out on top in most of the series, but I feel like Colento could use some matchup practice and really practice a bit more, because it shows that sometimes he doesn't have the lines down, in my opinion. Can't wait to hear back from him regarding that.
Like he watches. Like, why?
This is the nicest, most Swedish call out I have ever heard in my entire life.
If everyone else is gonna fire shots, like I'll take the time to do it too.
Damn straight.
Even in a nice way.
I want more wrestling style myself personally. I think it's all in good fun, and we all know what's here. We all want a better competition. Orange, congratulations on your win. Your 2-0 week here. Some breathing room for you. Get some rest and relaxation, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Glad we asked.
I don't disagree with him. I don't disagree with him. I've often been more critical of Colento than most other players, simply because I know he's so good that like I want to see him just be the best, because I think he's one of the few players who like in a short period of time can turn up that heat and just become the best. And I'm like, man, I know that you can do it. I want to see you do it. And I agree with Orange. You know, this week alone, that was part of what spurred the little speech that I ranted on about during RDU's match, was that Colento just, in the Viper matchup, he clearly had not practiced it very much, if at all, and he just straight up missed 6 damage, which was super relevant at the end of the game.
Yeah, there was weird trading going on. He admitted that he didn't understand that like the full ridiculous set of Nomis could come out. He thought it was just straight up OTK deck, and then he missed damage, as you said. But yeah, love hearing shots. Please, more. Anyone that wants to come on an interview and fire some shots, please do it. But I also want to touch on that point where he mentioned where he didn't want to be the guy bringing Warrior. Because I came into this week thinking the same thing. When I saw the deck list and there was so much Warrior, it surprised me because of those matchups that Orange was outlining. Like, I'm not sure if I 100% agree with him on Priest being slightly favored in the matchup, but from the other side, you're like, well, yeah, like there's so many decks that just seem to beat up on Warrior that I'm not sure you want to be the Warrior guy coming into this. I found it a really interesting point.
Perhaps it needs to change a bit. Perhaps you need a different angle. Perhaps it just wasn't this week. You know, players maybe just prepared for it. a bit much on that front. Either way, I'm always going to love Warrior. You're never going to talk me out of liking that deck. And so we have two of them.
I'll keep trying, don't worry.
We have two of them in this next series. Boston taking on Pavel in this one, and then below you can see the protection and the ban phase that takes place. That's where the Divine Shield bubble over class is. At the start of the match, you're going to protect one of your decks. It's ineligible to be banned, and then you ban one away from the opposing side. So for Boston, he's protected his Priest. For Pavel, he has protected his Priest. Super common this week and not unexpected. And then Boston's had his Control Warrior banned away, and Pavel has had his Reno Mage banned away. So two bans
out of two
for Reno Mage. And Pavel's brought Bomb Warrior to the table here too, so I think that could be influencing some of these spots here. But now, what's your take on this one? Because, you know, something I looked at this week with Warrior perhaps being weak was just the fact there was no rogues in play at all across all of Grandmasters. Zero out of 48 players brought rogue when you got to bring 4 decks.
And I guess when you look at it that way, like maybe that's the level we landed on, where some players went, okay, I think there's going to be a lot of warriors, therefore I don't want to bring rogue, I want to bring druid and quest shaman and these decks that beat up on warrior. And the people who submitted warrior didn't get to that next level, which is like, well, people are going to understand that and not bring rogue, so suddenly warrior loses one of its better matchups and it's in a rough position. And maybe that's where we ended up. But like on top of all that, Pavel was throwing a curveball and bringing the Bomb Warrior into proceedings alongside Combo Priest, where he is not playing the Bomb Sumdy at the top end. His curve ends at 4.
Yep, that graphic that shows the key cards is incorrect. I had purposefully left out a third slot because my question is, where's the Bwonsamdi?
Yeah, we haven't seen. I think we might have got overruled on that somewhere along the lines because we haven't seen it yet.
Where's the Bwonsamdi?
Yeah. We did. We were memeing. We left blank spots.
Put his face on a milk carton. It's missing from Pavel's deck. We need to find him.
He done?
Now I'm done.
Okay, good.
Tough matchup for Quest Druid. Pavel's got his work cut out for him. This is 2 matches in a row where we've had a pretty large deviation on Protect Priest. In America's region, it's largely been Protect Priest, queue up Priest. Like, almost without fail.
Just get the mirror out of the way, game 1.
It's the good deck.
Yeah. I mean, we have, like, going into this week, it was Druid as the most protected deck in Grandmasters. And now, I believe after this week, Priest is going to handsomely overtake it in proceedings, which is crazy because it's the week after the nerfs happen where it's going to re-overtake Druid, which was the deck everyone was like, oh, this deck is the nuts now. Every other good deck got nerfed, so this is Druid's time to shine. It got to shine for 1 week, and then Priest just came crashing back in like a wrecking ball and said, nope, we're back on top.
Strong early start for Boston.
Behold, jewels of the sun.
If I'm in Boston spot, I'm thinking of a draw, and that draw is Circle of Healing. I didn't think about that one.
Kind of like it. I think I will...
I'll trade card draws with Druid.
Well, you could even just silence the Crystal Merchant, right?
You could. Just let him draw a card, though.
Yeah, I don't really want to do that.
I don't really want to miss damage. And I really want to draw cards.
All right, how about we develop the Blade Master and silence the Crystal Merchant? Because then we're not missing damage.
That's a lot more damage.
Then we're loading that damage into next turn.
All right, I'm convinced. Oh, that's so much better.
After much deliberation, agrees.
That's just so much better. Damage is so good.
What to do?
Pavel does have the quote punish for the play though, but even then the Wrath is getting siphoned out by the Light Warden. Pavel does not want to take a beating out on the following turns. Boston does need to get going here sooner rather than later.
Yeah. It's combo priest.
Wonder.
Damage plus damage. That's the combo.
Next turn, Pavel most likely just going to draw another card with the Crystal Merchant, and then he's going to be in business. If you can find an Oasis Surger or a Starfall in the meantime.
Let the pain speak to me.
So Boston is becoming concerned about the amount of gas that he's got. He's thinking about, I think, if Pavel takes a turn off to swipe as well.
Sure. There is that Starfall.
Behold, jewels of the sound.
Generally not as crushing against Priest as it can be against other classes because of the high health totals that Priest can manipulate across their entire board. Boston not having made as much progress as he would like here in terms of just huge minions in play, damage being pushed. Pavel's not panicking yet, and you want the Druid to be panicking in this position when you're playing Priest against it.
I must consider.
Maximum 7 health can come down on that Blade Master this turn as well.
Yeah, I was trying to think about the iteration here. If he had played extra arms the previous turn, he'd be able to get the injured up to 9, but that would still fall to the 2 Crystal Merchants and Starfall in that position.
Yeah.
So I still think he would end up in a bad spot because his turn 6 would be the Acolyte of Pain. However, you would have
I
gotten
must consider.
2 plus 4 extra damage in this spot.
You also find draws for like Circle of Healing to make the Blade Master enormous at that point.
Yeah, it's true. I think I like the draw here from Boston. I think he doesn't have a way to effectively play around Starfall unless he gets himself to like a Divine Spirit anyway.
Right.
Circle and Divine Spirit and such. And so as long as the Starfall gets pulled before you find the Bonsomni turn, I think that's really the key.
I will take 10 health on my Blade Master, please. No? No!
Yeah, I agree with this actually. I think you want to pull the Starfall in this position.
And then play what?
Well, you hope to draw something is what's going on.
I guess if he makes a 10 health Blade Master, he's vulnerable to the Oasis Surge play anyway.
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
Oasis Surger is always going to be the prime card you think of. And so that's really the telling story there. It got super highlighted by Pavel drawing it because it's something I should have just said ahead of time. But when you're playing against Druid, you're always thinking about Oasis Surger.
Yeah, fair enough.
I must consider.
Boston finds himself in just a spot of bother now. Having to fight from behind already.
Yeah, that was a major pickup from Pavel's side. The alternative would have just been Starfall and then hope to nourish into stuff to fight back. Instead, he took a lead, and that's a major problem for Boston.
I wonder.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you need to extra arms here and clear this off.
Oh, that's not a good feeling either, is it?
Well, you have the Bonsomni next turn.
Yeah.
So you get to stick a 3-1 and you play Bonsomni with a Northshire Cleric in hand.
Yep. It's the best you got. In fact, you're just suiciding this more arms into a 5-4 from your opponent. It's still not a good feeling. I think you're okay with it based on the context of the hand you have.
I think you are free to develop this Northshire
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think it's actually gets played for
Is
sure.
someone injured?
This makes Pavel worry again about the board position. I think very likely to...
Free Nourish. Find himself a Wrath to go with this. Be ideal.
wow.
That's ideal.
Wow. All right, well, we're going to see if Bonsomni can get the job done.
Did Boston draw a
High
card this
Priest
turn?
Ahmet
Boston
drawn.
did draw a card this turn.
Wow. Huge pickup for Boston, who I think is about to take a substantial lead.
Yep.
Pavel's got a big turn this turn. Boston's got a big turn of his own coming up. High Priest, Divine Spirit, load the board.
Pavel's instinct is Cenarius, and I'm inclined to agree with him. Divine Spirit Inify does give the 14 on the Bonsomni, but there's no way that Pyro pushes through the 2/4/4 taunts.
you'd have to take off too big of a turn, I think.
I mean, if it just ended up being lethal, you do it, but it's not.
Oh, I see. You're talking about the lethal possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay. So he does actually have a way to push past with the Pyromancer, even despite the High Priest Amit turn, I think. 4, 5, 6, 7. No, he's mana off.
What was the play that doesn't work?
So I was looking at High Priest Beaming Sidekick on the Wild Pyromancer,
Mm-hmm.
and then you Divine Spirit the Amit.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, that does work, because then he gets to play another 1-drop to it. So you get a 7 health Beaming Sidekick. It ticks down to 6, and then the High Priest ticks to 13, and you play a 13 health 1-drop. That does work.
Sure, but what's your goal with this play? What are you achieving?
Push through the trees. Open the trees up with Amit in priority in play. I think this is just stronger because more minions equals more minions.
When you're describing it as pushing through, I would interpret that as the 7/7 hit space, which it doesn't do, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to crack the taunts because
Gotcha.
more taunts in play equals less opportunities for lethal.
Okay, good. We're on the same page.
But, I mean, look at it.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Pavel does have some strong, like, pretty big punch into this board on the other side, though. Like, this isn't a matchup where you have to hold Floop for crazy combo stuff. It's like, do the most efficient things you possibly can every turn.
Yep. So they get 2 attacks here, 4, 7, and 6 to scythe into some of this. You can back that up with Swipe or Starfall. It's still just not enough. It's so much health. 49 health? Quick maths? I think that's right, yeah.
So Swipe and Starfall would clear off the Amit. It puts 3 damage onto the side minions. The Bwansamdi would die in the midst of that. You have a 4-1 taunt in play. Are you at risk of dying? Yes.
Time waits for no one.
But I think anything you do this turn, you're at risk of dying.
That's what I'm thinking too. So you have multiple ways to kill the High Priest Amit. It's pretty much done its job already, though.
This is where I defaulted to just because of the 2 extra taunts that you get in play, and then you then just take... Oh,
missed
I think
attack.
he missed attacks. I think he missed attacks.
He didn't miss the Cenarius attack, did he?
Oh, he just missed the 6-3.
Yeah, well, the Cenarius one's the most important one. Actually, see, this is one...
Ah!
Okay, well,
Ah!
that's game. Yeah, this is way too much card draw.
Yep.
I mean, I can't even imagine what cards... Like, if I picked the bad cards from Boston's deck, I think he still finds lethal.
Is someone injured?
Trying to work how it's just lethal on board. I think it is. No, not quite. Just one awkward breakpoint on that current 6-3 taunt because of the circular healing it up afterwards.
Yeah, but again, picture a sequence of draws that doesn't win the game.
Yeah.
The first 2 are not that.
This is lethal. It just is. Deal with it.
That being said, I would have liked to see Boston do this a little bit quicker. I think that's one of the nitpicky things that you can talk about with him that he struggled with. Speed of play.
Sure.
There's a lot of animations going on. It just takes time, but he knows what's happening. That's the important part.
What's happening? Oh, double inner fire. Okay, sure. 14 through, inner fire the Armet, trade through, inner fire the Light Warden for the 18.
Find the lethal. It doesn't matter how ugly it looks, find it that turn.
Yeah, I think he solved it in a pretty efficient way, is that he looked at his opponent's health total, it was 18, so he found a minion that he could make 18 health on and then used that to solve his lethal, which is a pretty sensible way of going about it.
Yeah, I don't care how much he could have done that turn. Obviously, he could have done pretty much everything in the game possible, but find the 18, make it clean, least number of actions, make it as easy as you can. That's how you close games in tough spots like that where you're time pressured because of animation. So that's just the spot he was in. Pavel missing the attack did it mean something there?
I mean,
the Amit got to attack.
It absolutely changes things. It would not have saved him from like a perfectly played turn.
I don't think
there's no way that happens.
Just got in that one. Yeah. Priest versus Druid is extremely Priest favored. You have to check everything, take the lead, and then capitalize. If you don't do all of those things, you don't win. And that's That's just pretty much how it works. It's really tough.
I think it was a pretty well-played game from both sides, apart from that big blunder at the end from Pavel, which we're saying probably didn't have a huge impact.
No.
I liked the Blade Master on 3 with the silence. I liked Pavel's decision to go Cenarius that turn, despite him like messing up the sequencing with the attacks. And in retrospect, you know, cast division aside, I like Boston's play where he decided to just say, you know, if I make it 10, then Oasis Surger just punishes me anyway, and just ended up giving it 7. So I think it's a lot of little decisions on both sides that were played out pretty well, and I think that's important. That's what we're here to see.
Yep, it's good recognition of very key turns that can swing the game wide open in one player's favor. So, going to a quick break, and when we come back, it's game number 2 of Pavel taking on Boston in this one. Both of them looking to keep up some pretty good records they've had so far. Stay tuned.
The shadows are rising again, darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There should be scorching deserts, and nature must of narcissism. As they seek annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save the world.
My name is Sam Braithwaite, and I'm the Senior Global Franchise Lead for Hearthstone Esports. This event was especially cool because it takes place right after the brand new expansion, Rise of Shadows. Historically in Hearthstone Esports, we do our big events like this towards the end of an expansion cycle, but we really wanted to shake things up and really showcase that not only is the world champion the person who can pilot the best decks, but also the person who, when presented with a brand new game, can put together the best decks leading into the world championship. Cheers to you guys, the sold-out crowd here for the HCT 2019 World Championship.
Welcome back to 2019 HCT World Championship.
We've had a lot of fun games, and we're looking forward to the grand finals. Showdown. Viper versus Hunter Ace. Only one can be the champion. Oh, come on!
Alex, match be dead.
Wacko pick a Vince coming out from Hunter Ace.
It's now or never. Archvillain Rafar.
Okay! In a completely solved game, Hunter Ace finds a way to maximize his chances. It's been a wonderful journey throughout the past few years of the Hearthstone Championship Tour, where stars were made and dreams came true.
Spectacular Sunday on Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region. I'm Nathan, that's Admiral Zamora. joined by Simon Sottle-Welch, and we are amidst our second of 6 matches today. Right now, Boston's out to a 1-0 lead, thanks to some handy-dandy priest work. And for game number 2, Pavel's going back to the Druid, and he's facing off against the Quest Shaman from Boston.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the most interesting matchups in the game right now for me. I think, people who have... It's one of those matchups where, like, depending on which side of it you've played more, you think it's favored from that side. My opinion has actually flipped twice consecutively in 2 days, or in at least this week. I started off, I tested against TJ last week and came to the conclusion that it was Druid favored. I then played a lot of Shaman, really stepped up my play with that deck and started to come to the conclusion that it was Shaman favored. But that was just like me playing Shaman on ladder against ladder players. And with the greatest respect, when I queue into a player on ladder, I expect that I'm better than that average person that I queue into on ladder. So like my win rate increasing makes sense. Then last night I put in some more testing in the matchup, and now I'm back on the Druid side again.
Okay, well, with the greatest of respect, people on ladder, please just stop playing Tempo Warrior.
What does that have to do with anything?
It's like 60% of my games are against Tempo Warrior. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. Like, it can't win that much.
That was the greatest non sequitur I've ever heard. It was fantastic.
It can't win that much. I don't believe it. I love Bloodsworn Mercenary, but we need one more expansion, all right?
Okay.
Next expansion. That's right. I'm calling it then. Tempo Warrior's gonna be back, baby.
Watching this matchup, though, really makes me hark back to the days of yore, where quests were difficult late-game targets to achieve, whereas these two decks, you can quite often just play this mirror match, and both players are just done on turn 5, and then they're just popping off with both of their quests active.
Yeah, you're kind of right, but I guess I like the new ones. I like the new ones more, a lot more.
I wonder.
Would you care to explain why?
It's a long explanation. All right, so number 1, the game plans for them are clear-cut, but the variations of them are quite different. I'll take Fire Plume's Heart, for instance. That was one of the easier ones that's more reminiscent of now. That was my favorite one. You look at the rest of them, and it's just like...
Sorry, which one? I don't know names of things, Admirable.
The Warrior one.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Play a bunch of taunts in a row. Get a Ragnaros Hero Power. I mean, it's partially my favorite one because of the Ragnaros Hero Power, but also just because it had a game plan of how it's going to work. You knew the objective you were against.
Yeah, you matched the cards in your hand to the amount of mana that you had, and you played that one.
Yes, good. It was about deck building, and it was about understanding the end of it. Where Pavel actually was one of the people who I think played that deck the best, where he would understand that you 50-50 brawl a lot, and that you save your executes and just tank damage. And you use your execute so that 8 damage hits face instead of trying to grind them out by having an 8 damage shot hope hit a minion. That was a ridiculous line. I look at the ones now, and they're reminiscent of Fire Plume's Heart to me. Where the rest of them were just giant combo things where it's how badly can you kill your opponent once this is done?
Sure. That's very reasonable. I think the Cliff Notes version of that is the quests get completed faster because they are slightly less immediately game-ending when they do get completed. So because of that, like you say, they're not just big combo tools that end the game immediately. So the rewards, the requirements are less strict.
I love the way it is right now, where it feels like Druid, once it completes its quest, it's okay, my game started. And the rest of the time, you're floundering to have your opponent not beat you up before you step onto the field. I love that feeling.
Floundering is definitely the word. But this is the card for Pavel. This War Druid Loti in the matchup.
He was thinking about playing it.
He was. I mean, you couldn't do it. You just play it and you just leave it there in stealth the entire game. It's a very real thing.
But his quest isn't even active right now.
Yeah.
I'm not playing it.
No.
Deal me the damage. Come on, bring it.
It's way, way, way too important. You really want that stealth and the spell damage. The other things, you can take them or leave them, but the only way you're getting stealth and spell damage is getting the quest done and getting all of them.
I think there's 2 things to talk about from the deck building perspective for Boston. Number 1, he's included Former Champ. But number 2, he's also included Giggling Inventor. The former's quite poor versus Druid. Giggling Inventor does not really do a lot in the matchup.
Is it the 1-on-1?
No, he's 2-in-1. Former Champ, Giggling Inventor.
Okay. Sure. So no additional Brewmaster, Earthshock, anything like that.
Right. And so for Boston here, I think he has recognized how to most take advantage of the game, which is You take your time developing if you can, and then in one turn, going into an important turn from Pavel, you burst onto the board and then try to compound the issue on the following turn. And so this is one of the draws for Boston, I think, that could get the job done. I do think overall it's probably Druid favored, but I do think there are a lot of tricks that you can apply from the Quest Shaman side.
Oh, for sure.
That can catch a Druid off guard as they start to plan their turns. And I think that's really the key to overcoming the matchup, is being able to find important turns that disrupt what Pavel wants to do here.
Yeah, you can also just find certain outcomes where you get the right lackeys, like where you hit a ton of spell lackeys and you just get to generate an enormous amount of spells in your hand. You know, Stormbringers, big removal spells like Earthquake, like all that kind of stuff. Like, it can feel absolutely unwinnable from the Druid side. And the games where that Ethereal Lackey doesn't show up, those are the ones where you really have to try and engineer these big, thick minions on the right turns. You know, minions that just get out of range of the removal that you're expecting in crucial moments. And I think that was perfect timing for Boston to make a Starfall vulnerable board into a turn where Starfall was not a big threat, and he siphoned that Starfall out of Pavel's hand for minimum value, really, in comparison to what it's able to do later in the matchup.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about how important that Innervate was, though. Like, for Pavel, that Innervate may have changed the game. Like, you got to Starfall a big threat, you got to develop on the board, you got to complete your quest, and you have Nourish, Starfall, Lodi as your 4 remaining cards.
Yeah.
That Innervate may have been the best draw in his deck, probably the rest of that game. Like, I don't think it's possible for him to draw a better specific card on a turn.
It's a bold call. I think you might be right.
I mean, look at what trouble it's given Boston now.
Yeah. The overload here, slightly awkward as well. I love the combination of Bog Slosher and Goblin Lackey in this deck. When you have those two together, you can bounce a double buff a huge minion back to your board and then rush it back out with the Goblin Lackey. Super powerful to create board swings. But I was going to say, because of the overload here, he's kind of limited in the way that he can respond to this board state. Just kind of has to commit.
I'll be curious how Pavel responds to this as well. Well, I'm not anymore, but prior to this, you do have to fear the Mogu, not because it, obviously got evolved this turn or because it can be evolved, but if Boston manages to evolve that, like, that could be one of the ways you fall out of the game. So when he draws the Wrath here, he knows exactly where his game plan's at. He's like, I don't care about the Mogu now. I'm going to have mana open for Starfall. I have the resources to handle it.
It's a risk, but you know there's no mutate because it would have just happened last turn.
Oh, yeah.
And you know there's no lackeys in hand, so it'd have to be lackey generation into the 1 in 5 of the evolved lackey to really punish you for this, or top deck mutate. So I think it's a reasonable risk to take to just kill a superior minion on board.
Yep, and for Boston, that means take this time to thicken up the board.
That is 1/5/5. He can put 7 on something, or he can put 5 on something else. No mind control tech in Pavel's deck, right? It's running the bees instead?
I believe so, yes. Correct, 2 copies of bees.
Ubisat Defender right on time again.
Yeah, not the most impressive looking War Druid Lodi turn, but I think it'll get the job done.
You can Loti swipe on the 5/5 instead, and just leave the 3/7, which I actually kind of like.
I really want the Anubisath in play.
Yeah, sure. I don't like. I will let my opponent have that minion for the sake of having my Loti stealth for the rest of the game.
17's dangerous, though.
I guess with no Oasis in hand, it is a little bit dangerous,
yeah.
sure.
I don't mind it. I'm not, like, ecstatic about it, but you do have a Floop on a Lodi as well.
Float like a butterfly.
That's fair.
Sting like a bee. Sting like a bee.
This is the worst feeling in the matchup when you just have to develop into a Loti. Just feels horrible.
This is a major turn for Pavel. If you're going to land on Starfall somewhere, I'm feeling like that means we queue up a worthy expedition first.
I'm not sure this is a Starfall turn.
Keeps eyeing it.
It does. Yeah, I think this is right. There's the security he needed.
Waits for no one.
It wasn't a very effective Starfall, and I think we were talking about how Hidden Oasis would really change your ability to be more greedy with your resources. I think drawing and finding that option was the go-to that turn.
Whew, that's a tough turn from Boston. Nothing's clean.
Nope. If he goes Hero Power Sandstorm, that's pretty much his whole turn. Can't even then Barista with it. If he plays one Sandstorm, it's not good enough, so he can't Sandstorm and Barista it back to his hand.
Add a mind control tech for the sake of it.
Guess so. Get him in the Shutterwalk.
Let's get a 3-3 in play.
Engaging TC-130, mental dislocator.
I don't react to these anymore because they're all great. Every single one is great.
Just specifically Oasis Surger.
I know.
This could have easily been Druid of the Claw and something.
I know.
What to do?
The chances that you don't like get Oasis Surger or Starfall or Nourish or Hidden Oasis or Cenarius, like everyone is good.
But specifically the Surger. And the Overload again.
Yeah, it's another thing that made last turn awkward is that playing the Sandstorm Elemental at all was going to make his turn 9 then very awkward as well. So you did say earlier that Giggling isn't super effective in the matchup, and I agree with you in terms of, you know, it doesn't progress a win condition. You want to get ahead on board a lot of the time. You want to be pushing. And if you are not doing that, you want clearing power. It's where the Sandstorm Elementals and the Mind Control Techs and then the eventual Shutterwalk comes in. It does buy a lot of time, though, when you need some time to find other options from your deck. Because this is a deck where one Novice Engineer draw can change the entire game.
And that's exactly where I was about to go with this, is that Boston, I think, just he missed on Generation, where he didn't have an Evolve for the Mogu Flesh Shaper. He didn't pick up a Questing Explorer early. He hasn't found a Novice Engineer. None of his lackeys gave him extra stuff. It was just board presence.
Yep.
And that's just not the order you needed. You need something to stick and land a Barista if that's going to be your draw. Which, if that happens, that's usually enough.
It's something I mentioned early on. It's a very different game when you get given the spell lackey every time. That suddenly becomes so simple to navigate. I mean, added downside of what you described is that Boston still has 2 River Crocs in his deck that he can draw at any point because he didn't find one of those questings early.
Yeah, you see, this is the one I was talking about.
That's great!
It's not nearly as good as just another Oasis Surger.
It's not, you're right.
I don't have the same reaction to this one. In fact, I'm quite upset with this now.
Well, fine.
You said there was always a Cenarius or an Oasis Surger or whatever.
I did mention Nourish in that list, in my defense.
No, you didn't.
What?
I did.
Definitely no video evidence of that.
Check the VOD.
I did. I checked it just now.
Oh, that was quick.
Just got confirmation from our VOD detectives. They said Soddle's lying. VOD detectives.
Yeah, I mean, why was that the phrase you came
I
out
don't
with?
know. It sounded right.
Time waits for no one.
What would you call him?
Probably just said just got word from our producer, because then people might believe that that actually happened.
I'm pretty sure VOD detectives are much more reliable sources of information.
Behold, jewels of the sun.
Yeah, I don't even want to innovate.
Nope.
I want my options.
Well, there's some generation. You can play this, play a lackey, and then fill up his hand with the Barista afterwards. But the
Like
lackey
two
needs
lackeys
to...
and do it.
You can. can, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, that was a huge draw for Boston.
Just miscounted mana there for a second.
He can actually get back into this game, I think, because of that.
Yep. Gets the perfect outcome in the spot he's in as well. 2 lackeys that affect the board, which is what he wants to do while he's making a pretty slow play. Kill one thing, kill 2 things, fill your hand up again.
Do you ever forego the Goblin Lackey and kill all 3 things?
Oh, you mean forgo bouncing it with the barista and use it afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't actually consider this, but it does make sense.
This almost fills up your hand.
Yep.
It's a lot of gas to work with now.
Yep. I love it.
Landed the spot. Very nice sequencing from Boston there, too. I love to see that because that was a critical turn to get everything picture perfect.
It was a really technical turn, yeah. I was even failing to account for the fact that he was going to get the Giggling Inventors back. I just didn't even consider that for some reason.
You forget it's a battle cry because it's just a 2-1. You're so used to that body dying and going, well, that thing's useless.
Yep. As when I play that on the board, it's an 8-drop. Like, that's what happened. My 2-1 just turns into Tyrion.
All right.
That's how I play the card.
So I do want to talk about this turn from Pavel, too, because I'm a bit concerned with this. Like, that's a very liberal use of the Starfall when you have an Elise in hand. And Starfall is one of the most important cards in the matchup. I'm not even sure that I can begin critiquing it because I wanted to see Pavel go in a direction where you Elise the Starfall. You Elise the Zephyrus because I think your game plan at this point is just eliminate everything they do and then land Nomis. So maybe not because of the Elise Nomi dynamic.
Well, here's the other kicker, right? You know that your opponent has 2 Giggling Inventors in hand that you really want to be potentially using those Starfalls against in some spots.
Just hoping that Zephyrus provides the right card against this.
And now Zephyrus comes down as well, so that's not going to end up being Elise.
Oh, he gets a
This
Blood
one's
Knight.
used the flute version. You do get Blood Knight, yeah.
I wonder.
He will end up with 4 minions in play, guaranteed, if he does that, though. At least.
Your wish is my suggestion.
4 Divine Shields, sir. Thank you.
The options that are, like, decent against this, I'm like, wow, these are all pretty good.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Dread Infernal.
I'm kind of into that Cabal Shadow Priest.
I am never into Cabal Shadow Priest. What? I hate that card. You know
Oh,
how
yeah,
much I hate
I
that
remember
card.
it. You have a complex.
It's not a complex.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Card sucks.
Blood Knight again.
I mean, you know your opponent has the Giggling Adventure. I think that's just right.
Yep.
It's a 15-15!
Yeah, well, some of the time it's about to be Boston's 15-15. Because Pavel didn't just play 4, he played 5. And that is a 20% into a 25%.
Engaging TC-130 until dislocator.
Okay, can we get these back in our hands somehow now, please?
You gotta get them back in your hand, and you gotta have no duplicates in the deck either.
Right.
Which means you have to hope
fair
to draw
too.
Questing Explorer and Weaponize Wasp?
Both Box Loshes have gone and the Barista have gone anyway. It's a pipe dream.
I wonder.
It's a beautiful pipe dream, but it's a pipe dream.
Spell Lackey, Blazing Invocation. Find the Bog Slasher. It's never a pipe dream. That is the reality I want.
There is little time.
This is not the reality that Boston wanted.
Nope.
Double time and double
Yeah, make the 8-drop for sure. Hello. We like those.
Not the cleanest turn from Boston.
I think, yeah, ran out of time at the end there. I think there was a couple of suboptimal decisions towards the end. I think I'd like to see the Divine Shield still on the Alec here just for the extra protection from this 15-15. He could have continued with his initial plan of using something else to take care of that 5-3 Oasis Surger. He just ran out of time. So much stuff going on that turn. This is Quest Shaman in a nutshell. So many decisions. I've hit the rope with this deck so many times just trying to get through all the actions and all the branching decision trees as you have to discover 4 different cards in one turn and work out what you're going to rush into what, change your plan on a whim as you evolve something. Comes up all the time. Really hard deck to get right. I will say, that turn was not right.
Oh! Massive draw! Wait, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Just not into 15ing his opponent.
Deal 15. No! That is not okay! What? What is he fearing? I don't understand. Help me.
He wants to dupe it with the Elise? I don't know. Sign me up for dealing 15. Spell-Lackey needs to find answers now for Boston. Nope. No Earthshock, no Hex, no Plague of Murlocs. There it is! Admirable just slapped the desk in anger.
15. 1-5er.
It's weird that 1-5er in American is 15. In British, it's 5.
That's just not how numbers work. It's a 1 and a 5.
No, it's just one single 5er. It's a 5er. It's 5.
I see what you're saying, and I'm blinded by rage.
Excellent. Then I will continue to annoy you.
There's little time.
Ooh, I gotta calm down.
8-drop again for Boston. Oh! You ever thought you were going to have problems of getting those Zephyrus active earlier? You just weren't thinking hard enough.
Yeah, I don't even mind that being there. I have loved that card in my time playing Quest Shaman. People are like, I'm going to overdraw cards. I'm like, great, 20 you.
I'm almost out of cards.
Here are all these weaponized wasps.
I will say Boston is probably extremely interested in having his Shudderwock this game when it comes down to it. There's 2 mind control techs in there, which could be the big kicker, and a absolute flood of Annoyatrons.
I wonder.
So every other card in his deck, sure, I think he will happily burn them in order to fill up his hand.
That's actually super important to note because he hasn't found a single faceless lackey this game either.
Right.
So you actually will fill the board with Annoyatrons.
He has the champs from the former champ.
His former champ, and he has 2 Bog Sloshers in the pool.
Yeah.
But still, that's a lot of attacks to get through. And so, that's why Pavel wanted this, I think, the other Blood Knight, was to make sure that he has a way to push through in the instances where a bunch of Annoyatrons come down and you have a board full of 6/6s.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that there's another Giggling Inventor in hand, and he knows that there's a Shudderwock in deck somewhere.
But it takes so long to manipulate. Like, you have to have board space to be able to do that.
Right.
Need a hand, Explorer?
So it's become clear that Pavel's plan was to duplicate this 5/5 at some point. Oh my. Oh my.
8, 9, 10, 11, 17, 20 minimum from hand this turn. Lethal outs with Sludge Slurper.
5, 6, 7, 8. So you would have both mana to work with as well. So you lead with a Sludge Slurper.
Kobold Lackey is lethal.
2 Rush Lackeys lethal. How about
lethal.
both?
Yep. Count 8, 9, 10, 11, 17, 20 with the Lightning Bolt, 24 with the Kobold Lackey. Boston 2-0. I think he might have been gifted it to some extent from Pavel.
I don't think that 15 would have mattered, honestly.
Might be right.
Where would he deal the damage remaining afterwards?
What?
Oh! Sport space.
Okay, sure. I think he still overcomplicated it a little bit. I don't think the Rush Lackey needed to be played at all, but okay, fine, this works.
Doesn't matter.
It's okay, it's lethal, it still counts. Scoreboard.
Ooh, this match got me hyphy.
Ooh.
I don't even know if the 15 was right, I just wanted to see it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's one of the most interesting matchups in the game, for sure.
There's so much
fun.
The back and forth is crazy, and it's like critical mass points get hit on both sides.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I look at from Pavel's perspective, was the use of the Starfalls. Like, I liked that he tried to preserve one of them and really get the board going and try to hang on from there. I look at the War Druid Lodi and protecting his life total. Did that happen too early? I'm not sure because he didn't have any way to protect his life total at that point. I'm looking at the deck list from it. He's only got one copy of Ferocious Howl, so that is, part of that goes into your thinking, but you do have the second copy of the Worthy Expedition as well. There's question marks constantly rolling on both sides, where one critical turn changes the whole scope of the game. And Boston was able to find that, and Pavel was spending the whole time just having strong turns, never found that critical turn he needed.
Yeah, and I have a couple more to add to that, just in terms of questions. The turn where he played double Zephyrus instead of just one into the Anoitron turn, so he ended up with 5 minions on board instead of 4. That could have had a big impact. Of course, the 15 that we've been talking about the whole time. So many points where just minor decisions can change the thing. Like, that matchup is sick. Like, that matchup I could watch all day. It's fantastic. Really enjoy it.
I definitely could too. But I could also listen to Boston all day. Boston, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Thank you.
Congratulations on that one. That was a fun set at the end there. Talk to me about this series and some of the interesting points that you found in this game, like about the maybe tough decisions or interesting spots that you thought you had.
Yeah, I think this series was extremely hard to play, to be honest. I felt like there was a lot of very interesting and close calls all over. The first game as well, there was like some turns that I wasn't sure about. I think I should have made a 10-10 on turn 5, but like I drew that into pretty late in the turn. There was definitely slip-ups from my side during the series. But the MC Tech turn was like completely terrible, but there was just too much stuff going on, so it was just impossible to figure out because like I took the 2 worst ones today, so I didn't get to rush either. So my board was full and just a lot of stuff going on. I just don't have time to figure it out, but yeah, we got there in the end.
Yeah, so I want to say you are now 3-3 as your overall record, right? You're in, I guess, what most people are calling like the group of death in Europe, and I guess most other players in there would kind of look at you as one of the underdogs, like one of the players that they want to be beating because of the quality of everyone else. Like, do you feel that expectation, or are you trying to prove people wrong?
Yes, I definitely feel it, and I'm definitely want to prove people wrong. GM so far hasn't been like the place to where I have succeeded yet, and it's just been I haven't played perfectly, and I think I gotten a bit unlucky in spots where I probably like deserved better, but I really don't want to be the salty guy, and I think that just came out pretty wrong. I feel some people, but it's just been over the years. It's just like the background and everything that puts into it. Like I never made the playoff run and just never had the real performance, and sometimes it gets to you when you continually struggle and you put yourself back on and just I'm gonna practice harder and harder, and every time you do it something kicks you down, and sometimes it takes you harder than you would have hoped. So I think everyone feels it now, especially with relegation. I think everyone feels the pressure, and sometimes it gets to you, and it's just something you have to accept. But sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easier than ever. So
well, I do personally want to vouch for you, because when you've cast a bunch of DreamHacks and other tournaments and tour stops around the world, and you keep seeing the name Boston in top 6 and top 8 over and over again, like I know that you have it in you to compete with the very, very best. So I don't want to put that underdog tag on you whatsoever. I hope you do very well in this division.
Yeah, I think the intent is the just kind of stacking up the group and how tough the group actually is. Like it's tough to comprise, I think, who you think is in the top 4, even in the group in that spot. I want to hone in on that mention that you just had, where you feel like it gets tougher and tougher for you just because you start to have that self-doubt creep in. Like you've been one of the most consistent players on the pro circuit for a long time, and you mentioned that you feel like you haven't played perfect. Like what steps do you feel you can take specifically to shore that up?
It's just the focus, like in general. It's what I've talked about. I really try hard every week. I just put myself into it. I put in like 25 hours pretty much for each deck submission, and when you do that, you're gonna get emotional even if you win or if you lose, because when you put in that much time and is that passionate about the game, it's gonna affect you if you lose, or especially when stuff happens in the games where you're just out of your control. Like the week I lost to Jarla in the puzzle box game, it just took very hard on me because you put in so much effort and then it just ends up losing to that in that spot, and it really puts your mentality down. It's sometimes hard to overcome that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.